For centuries, the Bible has been regarded as the foundational text for religious and moral guidance, deeply influencing the lives of billions. It has shaped Western civilization, law, and even global ethical frameworks. But what happens when we subject this revered text to the lens of modern science, ethics, and literary criticism? When we examine the Bible through the lens of human progress, advances in scientific knowledge, ethical standards, and historical understanding, we are confronted with uncomfortable truths, contradictions, moral issues, and outdated views of the world that challenge the idea of the Bible as a timeless guide for humanity. In this video, we will critically look at some of the most prominent issues in the Bible, highlighting its primitive cosmology, moral contradictions, and internal inconsistencies. Welcome to Beyond Doctrine, and let's us explore the ancient book together. Please engage in the comments, also like, share, and subscribe to the channel. 1. Primitive Cosmology and Science, a worldview shaped by ancient knowledge. The Bible's view of the world is rooted in ancient ideas about the cosmos. While it may have been a reflection of the knowledge available at the time, much of what the Bible says about the natural world is now considered outdated in light of modern science. The creation stories in Genesis, two conflicting accounts. One of the most striking examples of contradiction within the Bible is the two creation accounts in Genesis. In Genesis chapter 1, the process of creation is orderly and structured. God creates the universe in 6 days, with humans made last, after all plants and animals. However, Genesis 2 presents a different story. Here, man, Adam, is created first, followed by plants and animals, and finally, woman, Eve, is created from Adam's rib. These two creation accounts reflect different theological perspectives, but they also expose a limitation in how the Bible explains the origins of the universe. Modern science, through disciplines such as cosmology, geology, and biology, tells us that the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old, with Earth forming around 4.5 billion years ago, and life evolving over billions of years through natural processes like natural selection. By contrast, the Genesis accounts present a simple, pre-scientific view of creation, one that fails to align with contemporary understanding. Flat Earth and the firmament, a misguided view of the cosmos. In Genesis 1:6-7, the Bible speaks of a vault, or firmament, that separates waters above and below the earth. This reflects an ancient belief in a flat Earth under a solid dome, with stars and planets affixed to this vault. This cosmology, though understandable for its time, is no longer supported by modern science. Today we know that the Earth is spherical, and that the universe is vast, governed by complex physical laws, far beyond the simplistic description in the Bible. The Bible's worldview, limited by the knowledge of ancient civilizations, depicts a universe that was not only flat, but also confined within a dome-like structure. Modern astronomy, physics, and space exploration have thoroughly disproven this idea. 2. Miracles versus natural laws, a challenge to rational understanding. The Bible contains numerous stories of miracles, events that defy the natural laws we understand through science. These miracles include the parting of the Red Sea, Joshua commanding the sun to stand still, and Jesus walking on water. But as science has advanced, many of these miracles have been interpreted in ways that try to explain them using natural forces, while others remain scientifically implausible. The Red Sea and Joshua's long day, miracles or natural phenomena. The parting of the Red Sea in Exodus 14:21 has been the subject of various naturalistic explanations, such as wind and tidal forces. However, there is no empirical evidence to support the occurrence of such an event. Similarly, Joshua 10:13 recounts the sun standing still in the sky so Joshua could finish a battle. From a scientific standpoint, this event would have catastrophic consequences for the Earth, violating the laws of physics, particularly regarding the planet's rotation. While these stories may hold symbolic or theological value, they are scientifically implausible. In an age where natural phenomena are explained by physical laws like gravity, thermodynamics, and electromagnetism, these biblical miracles seem increasingly out of touch with reality. 3. Moral and ethical inconsistencies. A reflection of ancient norms. Beyond scientific contradictions, the Bible also contains moral teachings that reflect the values of ancient societies, which often stand in stark contrast to modern ethical standards. While the Bible has served as a moral guide for many, its teachings on issues such as violence, slavery, and gender roles are troubling when viewed through the lens of contemporary morality. Genocide and slavery, divine approval of atrocities. The Bible frequently portrays God as commanding or condoning acts of violence. In Deuteronomy 20:16-17, God instructs the Israelites to completely destroy entire nations. Do not leave alive anything that breathes. In Joshua 6:21, the Israelites are commanded to kill every man, woman, and child in Jericho. These actions, seen from a modern ethical perspective, resemble war crimes and atrocities. Equally troubling is the Bible's acceptance of slavery. In Leviticus 25:44-46, God permits the Israelites to buy slaves from neighboring nations and keep them as permanent property. The New Testament does not outright condemn slavery either. In Ephesians 6:5, Paul tells slaves to obey their masters with respect and fear. In the modern world, where slavery is universally condemned as a profound violation of human rights, these biblical teachings are deeply problematic. Gender roles and patriarchy, a call for submission. The Bible also enforces patriarchal views, with women often portrayed as subordinate to men. For example, 1 Timothy 2:12 states, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet." Similarly, Genesis 3:16, after the fall of Adam and Eve, tells Eve, "Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." These verses, while reflective of the time in which they were written, clash with modern values of gender equality and women's rights. 4. Inconsistencies in the Bible, a product of multiple authors. The Bible is far from a coherent and consistent text. It contains numerous contradictions and conflicting accounts, which reflect the different sources, traditions, and authors that contributed to its development over centuries. The God of Job versus the God of the Old Testament. In the Book of Job, please watch the video, The Book of Job, in this channel. I put a link on the description below. God is depicted as allowing immense suffering to befall Job, a righteous man, to test his faith. This portrayal of God contrasts sharply with the more consistent view of God as just and merciful found in other parts of the Old Testament. For instance, Deuteronomy promises blessings for those who obey God and curses for those who disobey. Yet, Job's suffering occurs despite his righteousness, challenging the idea that God's justice is always predictable and fair. This contradiction raises profound questions about the nature of divine justice and human suffering. Is God just? Or does God's will transcend human understanding, as Job's narrative suggests? Conflicting accounts in other books. In addition to Job, other books of the Bible feature contradictions. The death of Saul. In 1 Samuel 31:4-6, Saul commits suicide after being mortally wounded. But in 2 Samuel chapter 1, 6-10, an Amalekite claims to have killed Saul at Saul's own request. God's role in the census. In 2 Samuel 24:1, it is God who incites David to take a census of Israel, for which David is later punished. However, in 1 Chronicles 21:1, it is Satan who is said to have incited David. These discrepancies highlight the varied perspectives and traditions within the Bible, further undermining its claim to infallibility. 5. Ecclesiastes and existential questions, searching for meaning. Ecclesiastes is another book that presents internal contradictions. It grapples with existential questions about the meaning of life, death, and the afterlife. In Ecclesiastes 9:5, the author asserts, "The dead know nothing, they have no further reward, and even their name is forgotten." Yet in Ecclesiastes 12:7, it says, "The spirit returns to God who gave it." This tension between the finality of death and the immortality of the spirit reflects a broader existential struggle in the Bible. 6. The Gospels, differing accounts of Jesus. The New Testament Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, offer different, sometimes contradictory accounts of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. The resurrection stories, in particular, differ in significant ways. Matthew 28. 2 women visit the tomb and encounter an angel. Later, Jesus appears to them in Galilee. Mark 16. The women visit the tomb and encounter a young man, not an angel, and flee in fear. Luke 24. The women meet 2 men in dazzling clothes, and the apostles are informed of the empty tomb. John 20. Mary Magdalene visits the tomb alone and mistakes Jesus for the gardener. These differing accounts raise questions about the historical reliability of the Gospels and point to the theological biases of the authors. Conclusion: a text shaped by its time. When viewed through the lens of modern knowledge, the Bible reveals itself as a product of its time, shaped by the limited understanding of ancient civilizations. Its teachings on science, morality, and history reflect the norms of a world far removed from our own. While the Bible continues to be a foundational text for millions, it is essential to approach it not as an infallible guide to life, but as a collection of writings shaped by ancient cultural, historical, and theological contexts. While its moral teachings still resonate with many, it is crucial to critically examine its contradictions and inconsistencies. In a world that values reason, equality, and human rights, the Bible's teachings must be understood in light of the progress humanity has made since it was written. The Bible's place in contemporary society should be considered not as a perfect rulebook, but as a text that provides valuable insights into the human condition, while acknowledging its historical and cultural limitations. And that's it for today on Beyond Doctrine. Thank you for joining me on this journey of critical exploration. If you found this thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our next deep dive into the intersection of faith, philosophy, and reason.